This episode was inspired by this comment. What's your take on this new world of protection with things like NFTs instead of copyrights or trademarks? And do I think that these traditional methods are still stronger? In this episode of All Up in Your Business, I'm going to explain why it's not a question of NFTs or copyrights, really more a question of NFTs and copyrights, why I do think these traditional methods are still stronger, and why even if you are the NFT, blockchain, crypto authority, you know everything there is to know about this technology, if you don't have at least a basic understanding of intellectual property and most importantly copyright law, you're probably doing it wrong. Hi, I'm Aiden Durham, business and branding attorney with 180 Law Co. in Colorado. If this is your first time on my channel, welcome to All Up in Your Business. I would just love if you hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the little bell so you get a notification anytime I post a new video. All right, so these things called NFTs have been a hot topic over the last year or two or so. NFTs have been sold for as much as a whopping almost $92 million. It's a relatively new technology centered around basically creating digital collectibles. NFT stands for non-fungible token. Does that mean anything to you? It really doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It is a digitized, authenticated token that's linked to a digital asset, and the NFT is recorded or minted on the blockchain, most commonly Ethereum, the Ethereum blockchain. Each NFT has essentially its own unique fingerprint. These fingerprints can't be reproduced, and NFT owners use these fingerprints to establish that they own a copy of the linked content from which that NFT was generated. It's a complete record of the ownership and history of this digital asset, and that record is stored on a decentralized database that we call blockchain. The value of an NFT comes from that NF, or that non-fungible part. That's where the value lies. Fungibility refers to the ability of an asset to be exchanged for something else of equal value. Money is a common thing that we might think of that is fungible. Currencies across the world, including digital currencies, I'm looking at you, Bitcoin, can be easily exchanged for one another at an agreed upon market rate. Precious metals like gold and silver are also fungible. They're traded at a market rate, so you know exactly what the value is on the day that you purchase the asset, and you can easily exchange it for currency or other assets based on the then current market rate. Okay, yeah, all right. I mean, that kind of makes sense. I can grasp it enough to kind of understand what it is, I guess. The way that I like to think of it, non-fungible essentially means that its value is much more subjective, and its value might be based on a number of fluctuating factors. Real estate, for example, is considered non-fungible. Buying or selling real estate requires it to be evaluated across a number of different factors. The property itself is going to be appraised and evaluated, the square footage, architectural, interior design elements, things like that, but we're also going to look at the market in that area. What have other comparable properties sold for recently? And we're going to look at what's the demand in that area or that neighborhood. If something is non-fungible, that basically means it's unique, one of a kind, and cannot be directly traded for something of equal value. Because only one original version of this thing exists, it has a very distinctive value that can't easily be appraised or exchanged for something like it. Okay, enough with all of that. NFT, blockchain, non-fungible token. I mean, these are all words that I think help to confuse what at the core these things really, truly are. The simplest non-techie way that I like to approach NFTs is that it is simply a fancy way of authenticating digital assets. That's it. We see this most often in the context of digital artwork or images being sold as NFTs. But NFTs can really be anything: images, video, audio, documents, even tweets. And anytime we're dealing with artwork, images, music, or any other types of original works of authorship, can you guess what else we're dealing with? That's right, copyrights. So when we're talking about what is an NFT, the NFT isn't actually the image or the artwork or the creation itself. It's more like a digital signature that's embedded in that image when it's created. Again, the most non-techie way to think about this: if I walked into an art gallery and I decided to purchase an original Picasso, it's a lot of money, this original Picasso, and I would expect when I purchase it that I will receive some kind of certificate of authentication, some piece of paper that I can hold to say, yes, this is indeed an original Picasso, yes, it is indeed mine, and the value that I'm placing into it is valid because it is what it says it is. That certificate of authenticity is kind of like an NFT. And without that certificate, the value of this artwork, I mean, drastically decreases. The value really only lies in it because we have this proof, this verification that it is authentic. Okay, so we get it. We kind of understand what NFT means, how it applies here. We understand that there's some copyright related stuff in it. What's the problem? Why does any of this matter? Well, let's talk about problem number one. Let's say I want to get into this NFT game. Naturally, I am going to mint a photo of the spectacular, amazing Britney Spears as an NFT. I've got this, my favorite image of Britney. I'm going to mint it on the Ethereum blockchain and sell my NFT. And of course, I mean, I'm gonna sell this to a fellow Britney enthusiast, someone who will truly appreciate this piece of art, this piece of digital history. Not only will my fellow Britney fan get to bask in the light and joy that is this glorious Britney NFT, they'll also get to enjoy the presumed return on their investment if they later go to transfer or sell that NFT. And I, of course, get to enjoy the profit that I made from that initial sale of the NFT. You know what else I'll probably get to enjoy? A nice cease and desist letter, perhaps even a copyright infringement lawsuit. You see, NFTs are kind of a brand new thing. I mean, the internet says that they've been around since like 2014, but even with that, relatively speaking, they are brand new. And we don't really have any laws that address NFTs. There are no laws that prevent someone from minting or creating an NFT. Those laws just don't exist, at least not yet. But there are a lot of laws that prevent people from copying, distributing, transferring, or profiting off of other people's work. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm talking about copyright laws. A copyright is a bundle of laws that are granted to the creator of a work, like a photo or a musical composition, a song, or a painting, any other original creative work. That bundle of rights includes the right to distribute, reproduce, display, or perform the original work, and create derivative works based on that original work. Simply put, a copyright is the right to copy something. There are exceptions to this, but generally speaking, the person who creates the work is the one who owns the copyright in that work. And since, as the copyright owner, I am the only one who has the right to make copies of this work, I am the only one who is allowed to create an NFT based off of this work, because the NFT is really just a copy or potentially a derivative of that original work. Even though we're dealing with a basically brand new technology, it's not a brand new concept to produce a piece of art in a different form or media. This is just a different form that we're producing, let's say a photograph or an image. So let's go back to my Britney NFT. Since generally speaking, whoever created the work is the one who owns the copyrights, we can presume that whoever took that photo, that original photo of Britney, is the owner of the copyright in that image. So I need a license or other authorization from that person, from the copyright holder, to create that NFT. Otherwise, it's copyright infringement. It's really no different from any other content that you might create. If I was trying to create a graphic to post on social media and I wanted to use an image of Britney Spears, I would need to make sure I have the proper license or I'm using it under fair use or some other way of avoiding copyright infringement. Just because this is an NFT doesn't mean it's now immune from copyright laws. No, it's just another format that this image or this media is being produced in. So, okay, I scrapped the Britney NFT idea because I am not the copyright owner. I can't make an NFT out of that photograph. So instead, I use my great graphic design and art skills, and I draw a beautiful original portrait of my beautiful Britney Spears. For the sake of argument, we're gonna go ahead and just assume it is a transformative work. For those of you who are keeping tabs on copyright stuff, we're gonna just assume it's transformative. That's not an issue. Since I created this drawing, I created this new work myself, I am the copyright owner. I own the copyrights. I own the rights to copy this image, and therefore I can freely mint it as an NFT on the Ethereum blockchain or whatever other blockchain I might want to. I own it, so I can do whatever I want with it. So now let's say you are my fellow Britney fan and you purchased that NFT from me. Do you know what you've actually purchased? I mean, you own the NFT, of course, but what do you actually own? Does that mean you now own the whole work that this NFT was created on? No, of course not. Are you now the copyright owner? No. You're buying the digital token, the NFT, and a license to that media file. Now, this is, of course, unless you are actually buying the copyright. In researching and preparing for this video, I was seeing that there are some instances where a creator of an NFT is actually selling or transferring the copyright in that work along with it. So if you are actually purchasing the copyright, that's a different issue. I think for the most part, though, these things are really just, it's a license. You're not purchasing the copyright. You're purchasing a license. Just like when I download or rent a video on demand or something, I can't then reproduce, I can't start making copies of this movie and selling it on my own. No, the production companies, they're gonna get real pissed off at me because they still own the copyright in that film. I just purchased a license to use it for whatever limited purpose they're giving it to me. But the idea still applies to NFTs. You're not purchasing the creation itself unless you actually are purchasing it. So you can't buy this NFT and now I'm gonna make this NFT into t-shirts. I'm gonna create posters out of this NFT. I'm gonna make more NFTs out of this NFT. I don't know what exactly you do with NFTs, but you can't do much unless it's authorized within the license that you're purchasing. And for the most part, it's not. It also doesn't really mean that you're the only person who can ever own this image. Because again, let's say I created it, I own the copyright, I've minted it on the Ethereum blockchain, and I've sold it. Aren't there other blockchains? I can mint it on this other blockchain and sell it to someone there too. I could also, print it, sell it in stores on Etsy, sell it in other formats or other media, however I want, because I'm the copyright owner. So yes, you do have this unique digital key, this NFT that is unique to you, but that doesn't in itself mean that the digital file, the actual work that the NFT is based on, is unique to you, or that you're going to be the only person in existence who's going to own that work. You might own that NFT, but unless you actually purchase or get an assignment or a transfer of the actual copyrights, you're just getting licensed. So what's the big key takeaway from all of this? I think the biggest one is that, again, it's not a question of NFTs or copyrights. It is very much NFTs and copyrights. Copyrights and trademarks, for that matter, aren't going away. They're not going to be overridden by NFTs, metaverse, blockchain. It's really just another context or another situation in which these existing laws, the existing principles are going to be applied. And so because of that, it is very important that if you are creating NFTs or if you're going to be investing in NFTs, you need to understand how copyrights are going to play into that, because you could be wasting your money on something that is essentially copyright infringement. You could also, if you're creating the NFTs, be putting yourself in a lot of risk for copyright issues if you're not going through the proper steps and channels to be able to have a license or proper authorization to create the NFTs. And if you're even remotely interested in getting into NFTs or venturing into this realm, you can't ignore intellectual property laws, because like I said in the last video where I talked about trademarks and the metaverse, it's not one or the other. They're all working together. If you learned a thing or two in this video, why don't you give me a thumbs up, and you can drop a comment. If you're an NFT blockchain expert and I said all of this incorrectly, then go ahead and comment. I don't really care, but I like to be able to speak and talk about things mostly correctly. And of course, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes of All Up in Your Business. If you are interested in getting into NFTs or the metaverse, I strongly encourage you to consult with an intellectual property attorney so you're not putting yourself at any risk of any kind of infringement or other legal issues. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Aiden Durham, and I'll see you next time.